Hey guys, this is Robin and welcome to another episode. So in this video, we have Haywood from binary.co, which is tech-enabled bookkeeping service that is doing bookkeeping for SaaS companies, for e-commerce and other brands. So Haywood, welcome to the show. Before we start, can you tell us a little bit about what Binary does and how you came up with the idea?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm not a qualified accountant, and I didn't really have interest in accounting for the past many years. But me and one of my co-founders, who was my first customer that I sold to around 10 years ago. So we have a sort of a business relationship from the get-go. He joined an accounting firm, a global one, to become a CTO. He tried digital transformation inside. Didn't work out too well. So at the same time, we saw pilot.com, bench.co in the US that were picking up. This was at the early 2020. So we said in Asia, instead of just copying that same model, can we validate it first? And then we realized actually there's a lot of traditional accounting firms in Asia around the world that don't want to focus on bookkeeping. It's a low margin business. They want to do as a lifestyle business that things that make more money per hour, tax advisory, audits, etc. Not monthly bookkeeping, because that's a very low margin business. And why that hasn't become more innovative is that there has not been so much technology to help bookkeepers or the bookkeeping process. I would say cloud accounting softwares have been sort of helpful, but in the end of the day, that's a cloud accounting software. If you don't have like necessary tools to process data, especially when it's offline data into these accounting softwares, which it can be still a very long process. At the very start of the journey, we think, hey, this is one thing that caught my attention. It's not a sexy problem. This was the rise of the whole Web3 blockchain craze that we're like, yeah, it's actually interesting to stand out a bit. So that's when we kind of kickstarted with this idea and stuck with the problem.
Got it. So how did it look like in the early days? So like, how did you find the first, let's say 10 customers?
I think it was a lot of help from Twitter, HubSpot blog, literally writing. I think there was a software called Lemlist that was really up and coming back in the day. And they were just writing different cold email templates, finding first time customers. I just followed exactly what they said, reached out to people who you think have this problem, kind of go along the lines like, no more than 50 words. I think that's my name. I think you were encountering this problem. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I'm not really, qualified in this space, but I'm really good at solving problems.
Yeah,
Do you want to
it
chat?
definitely worked.
And that was
because I got one of your emails, I think in the early days.
It definitely worked.
I think from Lemlist that you sent, like, hey guys, are you looking for accountants? And I think I got a few follow-ups. I remember that. And eventually we decided to sign up. So that worked.
Yeah, persistence works. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's not, I don't think it's about like landing the sale. It's about, opening up that first conversation. Just landing that first conversation.
Got it. And so in terms of timeline, when did you start Binary and where are you today? Like, how did it evolve from that day?
Ideation started around December 2019. We incorporated a business May 2020. I was still in my full-time job until June 2021 that I went all in. This was before our first check from any VC. So we knew the check was coming. That's why we had to devote full time. Ever since 2021, we have grown to around 750K ARR at the moment, and our ARPU is roughly $4,000 US. And most of our customers are spread between Hong Kong, Singapore, and US. Each country have quite different persona. And interestingly, how we evolved is at the start, it was purely like, hey, hire a bunch of software engineers, hire a bunch of accountants, and make the unit economics work for the customer. As we evolve, the ratio that we use to raise at, continue to be part of our equity story, is how many customers can one accountant manage without compromising in service quality. And that ratio has been going up by the software engineers literally treating our accounting team as the customer. How can we improve the software to help you make it better, blah, blah, blah. And slowly that SaaS has become useful to the accounting firms. Literally, we tell them, hey, this happened to our team. They become X more efficient. Are you interested? Since you don't want to do bookkeeping anyways, and you could repurpose your bookkeeping staff to do more higher value things. But we kind of went down this trajectory, and then now we're still growing that base in different regions. But I think the more interesting thing for us from a tech perspective and also like I would say a vertical perspective is Gen AI and how we utilize that to improve our platform in terms of character recognition, data extraction. And then the vertical part is actually, this data that we're collecting, with customer consent, who is it valuable to? How can we add more value to the customers? So this is where commercial banks or revenue-based financing companies, especially commercial banks, they, issue loans based on historical audit reports 12 months ago. So that's not very real time. So our job, whether it's benefiting the bank, but, first is to the customers, real-time finance. So we kind of see that, hey, someone else wants this to sell more. And we're kind of heading towards that.
Very interesting. And so to get there, you mentioned you raised a little bit of funding. What was the main purpose of raising funding? You mentioned you had a job when you started Binary and then you went full-time. So was it first full-time, you and your co-founder? And secondly, how did you invest the other funds? And which mistakes did you make by raising that money as well?
Now, some investors won't want to hear this, but I think now looking at it, I don't think every business should go after VC money if you really don't need it. And I think in our business like ours, especially in that period where it's sort of, full-time in a corporate and then part-time hustling this, we bootstrapped it from contracts at the start where there was no tech and we used other third-party SaaS to generate similar outcomes. And then slowly later it became more in-house SaaS. From that perspective, we didn't really have to raise, but I think I was really caught on to, hey, join part of a community. Let's get more access to more capital to get more revenue faster and conquer the markets. And I think I was really caught on to this one quote. If your direct competition is VC backed, you really need to be as well, or there's no point of you being in the game. I kind of bought into that philosophy. And we have two direct competitors. One is called in Asia, especially, and Awesome and Sleek. And that's what we offered to raise. So in total, the main mistake we made was actually raising staggered safes over a period of 1.5 years, different valuation caps. But I think in an ideal scenario, it's actually warming up to investors, using Lemnis, cold emails, board connections, whatever, and then closing that thing within 3 months, and then actually have an actual budget with 46-month runway. But for us, it was sort of like, 6-month runway, a bit close to the end now, do another raise. And it was just a really bad call. But, in the end of the day,
and
that was the main mistake.
It was a bad decision to raise because you were scared of the competition that raised a lot of funding, and then you wanted to keep up with them basically and make sure they didn't take the whole market? Or was it just raising too fast, or just both of these things?
I think it was both of these things. And the third point is raising without much of a plan. Because at the end of the day, I get that we can only plan so much of startups, but in terms of the experimentation process, we didn't have enough capital to fully run the experiment. That's why we have to keep going back out to the market. And I think that was one thing that, we did not do so well.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the marketing channels that you use? So when you raise money, a lot of investors, they ask, what's your go-to-market strategy? What are some of the lessons you learned there?
Yeah, sure. So, let's talk about the organic channels first. So the whole SEO and blog writing. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people really searching up bookkeeping, right? So that's not a very search word on Google. So we have to come up with blogs that are related to it. For example, getting fundraising ready for your startup, whether it's pre-seed or seed stage. And that usually means getting your finances in place. So that's where our plug usually comes in, and that brings in quite a number of organic traffic. But it's very seasonal because a lot of our customers really care about the books only when it's tax return. But because when it's tax returns, it's so annual, and you don't really see it as a monthly basis. So there's a lot of education involved. There's nothing wrong with that. It's my job and our team's job to educate. Monthly high sheet is great. And I think no brainer. Everybody has to do SEO. We did a lot of Lemlist outbound trip campaigns. We tried the whole spectrum of just short text, link to a blog, did personalized video with 2 coffee cups with Robin, your name on it and my name. before the market got too saturated. But I think our most effective GTM acquisition channel was probably through channel partners. So one of our channel partners are accounting firms. They don't want to do bookkeeping. We white label our service to them or the software, and they can markup on top. Another one would be food and beverage point of sale system providers or food POS machines. we found that very ironic. SaaS companies, they need the bookkeeping because it gets very messy as they scale. For really lifestyle businesses with super low margins, such as F&B, they really need this because cash flow is tight. So our natural angle is go through the F&B, and who exposes themselves the most to these guys? POS and payment gateway machines. So these two channels were the main
that's a very interesting
things.
learning. So yeah, that's great. Like 750K ARR, the ability to grow over time, the number of clients that an accountant can manage and improve that through tech is very impressive. So like, what's the plans for the next couple of like months or years? You mentioned like maybe exploring the revenue-based financing with banks, and I guess improving the tech with Gen AI and giving like more insights. Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about the plans for the future?
Yeah, sure. I think with the technology side, our data set isn't big enough because we don't really have that velocity. So we have to leverage on Gen AI for a larger sample size for specific use cases. One of our specific use cases is actually matching your transaction to a specific account code in your chart of accounts. Our previous technology couldn't do this very well, and that's where we have to leverage this. I think as we expand to newer markets, and especially in Asia, it's very fragmented with other languages, we have to look at more local LLMs in order to increase the accuracy at a much faster velocity to capture the market. Because there's one thing about servicing like very fully digital native companies using Brex, Mercury, that bunch of softwares. And most of their pain point is actually on the reconciliation side, not so much on the integration for the data from money coming in, money going out, but more so in the Asian countries, it's still very offline. So the key is still data extraction. And that's our big bet. So for a matter of expanding to different markets, we have to get that data aggregation in different languages correct. Right. And I think in terms of the so-called, in our industry, it's actually called alternative credit scoring. It's not just looking at the financial data, but as a bookkeeper, we have built a relationship with the business owner. What other attributes that is maybe more qualitative that can be contributed by doing your books more frequent? And I think this angle is very interesting to a lot of financial lenders because they're always only looking at scoring goal. So from that perspective, we have other two options. Right now, we process roughly $150 billion worth of revenue from our customers a year. We can either raise that facility and be a lending provider under the branding ourselves, but I have a little conflict of interest doing that because I think our job is to deliver great books, cannot muddle waters, and we should be empowering different lenders to bring the benefits of the customer, faster approvals, lower interest rate in this high interest rate environment, and put less collateral up because we have a better picture of your books. So these are all very direct outcomes that makes everyone happy. And I think this is still, as a startup, an experiment that we will support.
And so one of the things before we wrap up the interview, you mentioned that there are challenges to, of course, run an accounting service in in Asia in general, because of like different integrations and different tools. So what are like some of the biggest challenges that you faced? Is it mostly integrations or the language or different region and culture? And are you not really focusing on those regions for now?
We are. And I think the thing is that there's an element of labor arbitrage in this area. So the cost of buying the software, the incremental benefit, it's not really there compared to the more cost-efficient labor. And that's the issue because and it's very different than our US customers where, hey, you know what? For HR, I'm going to use Gusto. For bookkeeping, I'm going to use Pilot. For banking, I'm going to use Mercury. There's a lot of SaaS here that are super apps, Grab, WeChat, that has to aggregate all services together. And if you don't do that, then fine, you can compete on like micro SaaS, for example. But the customer will already get a full suite of services from a service provider or a super app. So if you're very niche like us at bookkeeping, we have to verticalize or else it's very, very tough. And I don't think this challenge will go away. It's really about
That's
the
super
labor
interesting.
arbitrage here.
I never thought about, I've used those super app a lot in Asia, for example, Grab or Gojek, that is more in Indonesia and Singapore as well now. But I never thought that it would be like the way to do it. And that's funny because I just talked to my friend 30 minutes ago and she said, yeah, one day there will be one app to run it all. And I was like, maybe not, but actually it makes sense in Asia. So yeah, well, that was super interesting. Haywood, before we finish this interview, any big learning you had in your journey and anything else you want to share to the audience?
Yeah, I'm gonna, it's not my words. I'll quote Jason Lemkin. I mean, he said one thing that really stuck with me, for the founder of Versastrum and DocuSign, EchoSign, sorry. If you're stuck every day and you don't know what to do, just go talk to your existing customers.
That's a good one.
That's really stuck with me.
I like that one.
You know,
And I think when you talk to your customers, there's also a whole art of asking the right questions, because sometimes customers will say, yeah, I want this feature, I want this and this. But then you should not stop there. You should say, hey, why do you need it? Or how do you use this? Or what's your use case? What have you considered in the past? And those kind of things.
And on that specific point, I would give a little plug. Read the Mom Test, everyone.
I heard about that one.
That's a great book.
I need to check it. Well, thanks, Haywood. Best of luck for everything. I'll link Binary in the description below. Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Robin.